My name is Brandy. Standing in my living room, the silence is almost deafening. The door has just clicked shut behind my sister, Stella, and I'm left alone with the weight of what has just transpired. It's been a long time coming, this moment of reckoning, and as I sink onto the couch, I let out a long, slow exhale, feeling the tension leave my body. I remember the day Stella first moved in. It was 6 months ago, and she'd come to me, teary-eyed, saying she needed a place to stay while she figured things out. I, being the kind-hearted sister I am, opened my home to her. Little did I know that those 6 months would turn into a nightmare of unpaid rent, unwashed dishes, and endless passive-aggressive remarks. My parents, Robert and Grace, have always had a soft spot for Stella. She's the younger one, the baby of the family, and they've always coddled her. Dad, Robert, is a traditional man. He believes in family unity above all else, but he's also a bit blind when it comes to Stella's faults. Mom, Grace, is more emotional. She's always tried to keep the peace, often at my expense. It was a typical morning when the tension reached a boiling point. Stella was standing at the top of the stairs, her robe loosely tied, her hair in a messy bun, and her phone in her hand like a scepter. "Brandy, get up and make me breakfast," she barked, as if she owned the place. I'd already decided that this was going to be her last week here, but I didn't let on. I turned to face her and said evenly, "If you want breakfast, Stella, there's cereal. You can handle it." She scoffed. Wow, attitude. Maybe if you had a boyfriend, you'd understand sharing. That stung, not because it was true, but because she sounded just like Mom. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Dad's text, "Family dinner tonight. Be there. No excuses." I sighed. Family dinners at Dad's always meant trouble, usually with Stella trying to turn Dad against me. But I replied, "Fine. I'll be there." Stella grinned. "Perfect. I'll tell Dad what you've been like. Maybe he'll knock you off that high horse." I smiled back, calm and collected, knowing that by the end of the night, it would be her high horse that would fall. As the evening approached, the sky had that deep orange glow that always felt more like a warning than warmth. Stella spent the afternoon parading around the house in one of my silk robes, humming loudly and pretending to clean. I said nothing, letting her arrogance build. It would make what came later hit harder. At 6 o'clock, we drove to Dad's house. It was only a 15-minute drive, but the silence in the car was palpable. Stella scrolled through her phone, smirking occasionally. "Just so you know, Dad's siding with me," she said casually. "About what?" I asked. "About you being selfish. You don't visit enough. You don't help out enough. You think money replaces family." The word money came out of her mouth like poison, even though every rent check she'd avoided came from my wallet. When we arrived, Dad was on the porch, arms crossed. "You two took your time," he said, giving Stella a warm smile before barely glancing at me. Inside, the table was set with Mom's old china and candles, the usual show of family togetherness. Stella dropped into her chair beside Dad as if it were a throne. "So," Dad began, "your sister tells me you've been distant, Brandy, that you've forgotten where you came from." I smiled tightly. "Did she also tell you she hasn't paid rent in 6 months? Stella's face stiffened. "Wow, bringing money into family talk. Typical." Dad frowned. "You're her sister. You could help her out. Family isn't about keeping score." I placed my napkin neatly on my lap. "You're right, Dad. Family isn't about keeping score. It's about honesty. And tonight, honesty is going to tear your little alliance apart." Dinner started quietly, like the calm before a storm. Stella filled the silence with her usual monologue about her potential acting jobs, dramatic sighs about her difficult landlord, me, and constant digs at me disguised as jokes. Dad chuckled along, glancing at me every now and then as if he couldn't decide whether to scold me or pity her. So, Brandy, Stella said sweetly, slicing into her roast. How's your little company? Still pretending to be a CEO? I smiled. Still running it. We just signed a deal with a New York client. A small contract, about $200,000. Her fork clinked on the plate. Dad raised an eyebrow. 200 what? Thousand, I said, calmly sipping my water. It's been a good quarter. Stella blinked rapidly. Oh, wow. Good for you. But her tone cracked slightly, and envy dripped through the sarcasm. Dad nodded approvingly. That's impressive, Brandy. I didn't realize your business had grown so much. I know, I said softly. Nobody did. Not even the sister who's been living off me. Her head snapped toward me. Excuse me? I turned to Dad. Did she tell you she's been staying rent-free? That I've been covering her credit card bills because she maxed them out on acting gigs that never existed? Stella's face went pale. That's a lie. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, open to the bank app, every transfer labeled Rent Stella. Dad's smile vanished. You told me you were paying her back. I meant to, she shouted. She said it was fine. No, I said, my voice calm and steady. I said I'd help until you got on your feet. That was 6 months ago. You've only learned how to stand taller on my shoulders. The air thickened. Dad sat back, silent. Stella's lips trembled, and her performance finally cracked. The truth was finally louder than her voice, but I wasn't done yet. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. Stella, is this true? She stammered, her eyes darting between us. She's exaggerating. You know how Brandy is, dramatic, controlling. I laughed softly. If being responsible makes me controlling, then sure. But if you're going to talk about drama, Stella, maybe tell him what you did last week. Her eyes widened. Don't. Go ahead, Dad said sharply. What did she do? I slid my phone across the table again, this time opening a photo of Stella posing in front of my car, captioned, Early birthday gift from my generous sister. Dad frowned. You bought her a car? I didn't, I said. She borrowed it for errands and posted that online. I found it when one of my clients mentioned it. Stella's face drained of color. It was just for fun. Fun, I said quietly. You humiliated me publicly, pretended I was your sponsor, and then had the nerve to call me your maid this morning. Dad blinked. You're what? I repeated it slowly, letting every syllable cut through the air. She called me her maid. He turned toward Stella, his voice rising. You said that to your sister? The one putting a roof over your head? Her lips quivered. I didn't mean it like. Dad cut her off. Enough. For the first time, Dad looked at Stella like he was seeing her for the first time. And then, he looked back at me and said, almost quietly, Brandy, you should have told me. I met his eyes. I tried. You just didn't want to hear anything that made her look bad. This time, he didn't argue. He just sat there, realizing who'd really been holding the family together. Stella's fork clattered against her plate, and she pushed back her chair, her face flushed. You're turning this into some big drama to make me look bad. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. She'd done that all by herself. Dad rubbed his temples, exhaustion replacing anger. Enough. Both of you. But his eyes stayed on Stella. That was new. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. What's going on? Stella seized her moment. She's lying, Mom. She's trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. I turned to Mom. You want proof? I opened the payment receipts again, scrolling to the last one. Every month, $1,200 straight to her account. Want me to show you where it went? Designer clothes, spa trips, a trip to Los Angeles. She told you I paid for her acting classes. Mom's jaw tightened. Is that true, Stella? Stella's voice cracked. She said I could. She didn't mind. I didn't mind helping, I interrupted. But you mistook generosity for servitude. Dad pushed his chair back, slowly standing. I think you owe your sister an apology. The words landed like thunder. Stella froze, her usual defiance fading into disbelief. You're taking her side? Mom's side, I said. He's not taking sides. He's acknowledging the truth. Stella's eyes filled with tears. So, I'm the villain now? No, I said quietly. You just wrote your own ending. She looked at me, her lips trembling. What do you want me to do, Brandy? I met her gaze, steady. Start packing when we get home. You've got a week. Dad sat back down slowly. She means it, Stella. I nodded, my voice calm as ever. This isn't revenge. It's rent and reality finally due. Stella stood frozen in the middle of the dining room, her lips parted, a tear suspended on her cheek. For once, she had no script, no snappy comeback, no way to twist the story. Dad exhaled slowly. Pack your things. Brandy's carried you long enough. Mom reached for Dad's arm, whispering, Robert. But he didn't look away from Stella. She's done everything we should have done years ago, set boundaries. Stella spun toward me, her eyes wild. You're turning Dad against me. No, I said gently. You did that when you decided I was beneath you. The words echoed off the walls, heavy and true. For years, she'd lived off my effort, convinced she deserved it. Now the reality of consequence was standing in front of her, and it looked like me. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the photo frames rattled. The house fell quiet again. The clink of cutlery, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the dining room clock, ordinary sounds that suddenly felt like relief. Mom sat down, her eyes glistening. Brandy, maybe you could let her stay until. No, Mom, I interrupted softly. Every time I bend, she breaks me a little more. I'm done calling that love. Dad gave a slow nod. She'll figure it out, or she won't, but that's not your problem anymore. For the first time in years, the heaviness on my chest loosened. I picked up my purse, glancing toward the door. I'll head home. I've got a long week ahead, a board meeting tomorrow. Mom's voice trembled. You've changed. I met her gaze with a calm she didn't recognize. No, Mom. I just stopped apologizing for surviving. Outside, the night air was cold, but my spine felt warm, unbent, alive. The week that followed was quiet, too quiet for Stella. On Monday morning, I found her halfway through packing, muttering under her breath about ungrateful people and family betrayal. She didn't look at me when I walked past. I didn't push. Silence had become my new power. By Wednesday, she'd posted one of those cryptic stories on social media. When people show you who they are, believe them. Fake sisters exist, too. I didn't even flinch, because by then, my phone was full of messages from people congratulating me on my company's new partnership, the same deal Stella once mocked as pretend. Friday afternoon, Dad called. His voice was softer this time. She's leaving tonight. Just give her grace, okay? Grace doesn't mean access, I said gently. She'll have both when she learns respect. He sighed. You sound like your grandmother. Good, I replied. She never raised beggars. That night, Stella dragged her suitcase down the hallway, pausing by the front door. Dad says you'll regret pushing family away, she said, her voice trembling. I met her eyes. No, Stella. I regret letting family push me down. For a moment, she almost looked human again, lost, small, unarmed. Then she turned and walked out into the cold, the headlights washing over her before she disappeared down the street. When the door clicked shut, I sat on the couch and exhaled, realizing how long I'd lived with someone else's noise echoing inside me. Peace was foreign, but it was beautiful. I texted Dad one last time, "She's gone, and I'm okay." He replied minutes later, "Proud of you." It wasn't victory. It was balance, and balance felt better than revenge ever could. A month later, the holidays rolled in, and for the first time in my adult life, the season felt light. The apartment was quiet except for soft jazz, cinnamon candles, and the slow rhythm of peace. Mom called that morning. "Stella wants to come home for Christmas," she began carefully. I smiled to myself. "She already has a home, Mom. Maybe she'll find herself there." That silence said everything. Later that evening, I hosted a small dinner for my closest friends and my mentor, Lily. The table glowed with warmth, laughter spilling like music, the kind my family never learned to hear. Lily raised her glass. "To boundaries that become bridges, not cages." Everyone clinked glasses. I held mine a moment longer, letting the weight of her words settle. After dinner, I opened my laptop to approve the new initiative at the foundation, the Restart Fund, a program for women rebuilding their lives after family betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become exactly what I needed years ago. At midnight, a knock echoed through the hallway. My friend Ethan answered, then turned to me, whispering, "It's Stella." She stood there, bundled in a coat too thin for winter, her eyes red, but not angry. "I got the job you sent me," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. "Congratulations." She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry, Brandy." I nodded. "Then start by being kind to yourself. That's where it begins." She nodded back, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a performance. She turned and left, the snow swallowing her footsteps. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing in the scent of pine and peace. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with understanding, and sometimes that's enough.